Hey everyone, welcome back to Meta Abuse. I'm joined by Sean.
How we going, Lucid?
Yeah, doing pretty good. We're going to talk today about marathons and in a bigger picture way, we're going to talk about Bungie as a whole, the rise and the fall of Bungie. Bungie at one point was really a golden goose. Everything they touched seemed to be turning to gold. They made tons and tons and tons of money for Microsoft. They made tons of money, or a lot of money for Activision. But recently, they have not been making a lot of money for Sony. In fact, Sony's written off about 750 million in losses, and that's probably not going to be the last of it. I think we're going to go through and just sort of talk about all the different IPs they've released over the years and kind of do vibe checks on a lot of the trailers and compare how those vibe checks of the trailers are with how that title actually sold. And then we'll get into looking at Marathon. But one thing Sean and I were talking about before we started here was just the player accounts for Marathon. It's not very good. At release, it was like 80,000 almost. And at some level, that doesn't seem bad. That seems like great. Like a lot of people are playing it, but it died off really quick. It's been dying off at like 15 to 20% player count per week, which for a lot of games is fine, but that's not fine for a live service game, which is what Marathon is. Now, it's sort of fine in the sense that you actually had to pay to buy Marathon. So it's not like, if you buy it, if you play it and never come back, like some live service games, they don't make any money. No, they make some money off you if you just play it. But if you compare it to other titles like Destiny 2, which is like this is a line to release. So you can see these are like completely different games. And the interesting bit is that it's likely, we don't have exact numbers, but from the estimates I've seen, it's likely that Marathon cost twice as much to make as Destiny 2. And this player fall off for Destiny 2 was like a crisis at the time. It was a huge deal. Everybody was leaving. They had to basically do a huge kind of call to arms and figure out what they were going to do in some of the later expansions to fix it. And they later did and kind of brought the player count back up. But basically all that to say, people weren't really even very interested in Marathon to start with. And then the people who did play it were sort of like, I guess let's go do something else with our time.
Yeah, I think here you're sort of comparing, yeah, they're both Bungie games, but they're both very different, as you say, too. And it's like when you're comparing something like Marathon, like we were just saying before, even comparing it to other extraction shooters, some of them have similar player bases, but they're much smaller studios and their games have been around for a long time. Like Hunt Showdown from Crytek has been around for, I actually can't remember, Marathon at the moment, and that's stable at like 15,000 or so. But for something on the scale of Bungie, it's an existential crisis.
Yeah.
Yeah, and even
I think the estimates are Marathon costs somewhere between 200 to like 250 or 300 million to make. I think they've got like a burn rate as a studio of like 200 to 300 a year. And half of that obviously was spent supporting Destiny, and then half was spent supporting Marathon. So I don't know, maybe it's even higher than those numbers, but yeah, you with 10,000 players, you obviously can't support 150 million dollars a year.
No, well, that's why they're trying to make this pivot, because you've got Destiny 2 that had that big PvE crowd for your strikes and all that sort of thing. Like it has PvP in Destiny, but I don't think it was ever at all the main component, really. And that's sort of really all Marathon is. And it's like it's like other extraction shooters. I've been playing quite a bit of it, and it's in some ways it's like other extraction shooters, but in other ways it's even less player friendly. Like in a lot of them, you have a safe storage in your inventory where you can put something in to make sure that you'll get it out of the match. And Marathon doesn't have that. Like it's all very, very lethal, very sweaty. You've got PvE stuff, but everything is really dangerous. And with the low TDK, low time to kill, that kind of thing, it's very lethal, and I don't know, it's not super player friendly, which I think is why a lot of them have gotten into it, and they've played a while, and they probably just got sick of getting destroyed by sweats, and they've just gotten off, and which happens with a lot of these games, and then they get whittled down to a very small player base of your hardcore sweaty players, and then this is pretty much where you end up at.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, some PvP games like Fortnite and stuff obviously did extremely well for very long periods of time, but it's certainly a lot easier to have like kind of a more casual, fun-loving crowd if it's not entirely PvP. And co-op, or like playing with a friend, is sort of the easiest win where you mix both worlds, because you're interactive, other people are seeing what you're doing, you're playing with friends, but you're not getting like constantly crushed. So, and like, I mean, Dota and stuff is PvP, and obviously that's super popular, but yeah. Okay, so I think what we can do, I have an infographic over here, which is sort of like the broad stroke Bungie timeline. I made this with AI, so it's not going to be completely accurate on everything, but we'll talk about some kind of the broad eras here, and then we'll probably come back to it as we like advance between each game. But the first year is they were independent. They basically made a ripoff of Pong called Ganop. That's like this.
Oh shit, I didn't know that. That's crazy.
This is the first Bungie game. Is it actually playing? Yeah, here we go.
That's awesome.
This is how it all started right here. So these guys were OGs. So yeah, this is the computer. This is the player. So that was great. And then they went on to make another game called Desert Storm, and you're playing a little tank and you drive around. And this was, as you can see, played on the Mac. And this like takes me back to like old shareware days. Like I'd get like a floppy disk or something in the back of a magazine, and like there'd be like 40 games on there, and this would be one of them.
It kind of makes me think of old, when you had the first mobile phones that came out in color. And you had games like Snake and bouncing a ball around and stuff. This kind of gives me that kind of vibe too.
Yeah.
That's cool.
Then they had a couple other games, Minotaur, Pathways into Darkness. And then they did some games that were sort of significantly bigger. They did the Marathon trilogy, and then they did Myth. And Marathon, which has been remade recently, was like a first-person shooter. It kind of famously for the time had a ton of lore, and you would like stop and read like long I never really played this, but you would stop and read like long things and terminals, and it would tell you all about this alien world. So there's a ton of world building in it and stuff like that. I think it was, fairly successful, but it was not like a cultural phenomenon by any means.
Yeah, this was more like kind of set the stage for Halo kind of thing, from what I've heard about. I haven't actually played Marathon, but everything I've heard about it, that's sort of like this. People who know about it, like this was the precursor to Halo, and it influenced a lot of what happened with Halo.
Yeah. Then they took like a hard right-hand turn, and they made Myth. And Myth is not a first-person shooter. This is actually interesting. I haven't really played this, but I have looked at this a lot before, because this was sort of, as we're looking at, like, we're making a video game, and this was sort of one of the inspirations for it. So it's this real-time strategy game, and you basically move things around on a 3D map, but it's like very visceral. I don't know if we'll have like a thing. You can see that like it's actual projectiles. I think they've got physics for the projectiles. This guy's dodging them because they're being shot. You can see the explosions are fucking awesome. Look at this. So like this guy throws like a little grenade, and it hits, and then these like corpses go like flying off into the distance.
Holy crap. That's
like
cool.
That, like how satisfying is that really?
Yeah, that's sick. I wonder how hard that would have been to make at the time.
Yeah. So it's a really cool like 2.5D strategy game. It never, I mean, I never played it, and this would have been the sort of game I would have liked to have played. I was playing games at the time, so it wasn't like I wasn't around for this. So something about it sort of failed to connect, I think, with a big audience, but it was very technically cool, and they have lots of cool stuff in here. So this was pretty interesting. This was Myth. And then after this, they basically got acquired by Microsoft. And they were going to be making Halo as Myth, but in a sci-fi universe, right? So it was that same, it was going to be fully 3D now, I think, not like 2.5D. Whereas Myth, you could see there was a bunch of sprites for the units in a 3D world. So they were going to do this fully 3D game, but it was going to be in a sci-fi universe, and it was going to be an RTS. And then as they got playing with it, it was well, maybe it should be a third person over the camera shooter or something like that. Maybe a squad based sort of thing. Steve Jobs famously presented it, talking about how it would integrate well with Macs. He wanted, it's funny to think of now, but he wanted Macs to be a powerful gaming platform. So
yeah,
it's funny how that didn't quite work out.
Real funny thing, I just realized too, when you were talking about Myth, and I have a sort of an idea what happened to it. Age of Empires came out the same year, a month apart. So it basically just completely overtook Myth. So
yeah,
I was just thinking, isn't that about the same time that Age of Empires came out? So there you go.
Actually,
that era.
That's a great point, because I think this also fell victim to one of the things that killed a ton of strategy games, which was when they were shifting to 3D, a ton of strategy games got wiped out because they tried to do 3D, and 3D is just not very good for strategy games. When you have a lot of units on the screen, it's much harder to parse. It's kind of visually ugly. The first person's perspective you get from being the camera it's not immersive in the same way it is in a first person shooter or something. So yeah, I think this also an Age of Wonders is a beautiful 2D game with beautiful sprite work and stuff. So yeah, that's probably a big part, is that if you take the wrong tech move, they sort of did with Myth. I mean, I think Myth made money. I'm pretty sure it did, but it wasn't a phenomenon. So I think they sort of made the wrong tech move going to 2.5D, and then yeah, that's a good point.
Yeah.
So they're positioning themselves with Halo to be maybe a tactical game or something, right? Maybe RTS. They're working on kind of the engine and the tech. And then they get acquired by Microsoft. And Steve Jobs and stuff is presenting their game. Very cool. But then they get acquired by Microsoft. And it's okay, you're not going to be on Mac. You're actually going to help us launch our new hardware platform called Xbox. And they acquired them for, I think, $30 million. And this was probably the best $30 million that any company has ever spent in the gaming industry. Over the course of Halo's lifetime, Halo Combat Evolved, and then Halo 2 and Halo 3, they probably made about $10 billion in revenue. So an extraordinary amount of revenue. And more importantly, it sold the platform. And they were pretty much universally loved. Halo 2 had some people that sort of didn't like it very much. You played all of them, right?
Yeah, well, I was going to say, so even just putting the money thing aside, it had a colossal cultural impact, because even now, Halo still has a really a massive mind share, even though 343 has just been completely shitting the bed for about the past decade. Yeah, but back in the day, the first Halo was incredible, and it was they had really satisfying shooting. They had the big Magnum, and it had all that lore and world building kind of stuff that Marathon, there's a lot of this stuff that from Marathon went into Halo. And even though for its time, I think it was, a bit ahead of things as well. So yeah, Halo 1 was huge.
Look at this trailer. When this came out, this was unbelievable. This is all cinematic tier stuff at the time. And it was no, this actually is basically using the game engine.
Yeah. And there were so many moments from these early games that people still talk about now. They still quote them. It had massive cultural impact.
Yeah. Turn that sound on here.
Affirmative. Echo 419 inbound.
The Covenant presence here is stronger than I anticipated. They seem to have the entire region secured.
The ring has some kind of deep religious significance.
They call it Halo.
They believe that Halo is some kind of weapon, one with vast, unimaginable power.
If Halo is a weapon, and the Covenant gain control of it, they'll use it against us and wipe out the entire human race.
That's not going to happen.
Give him hell, Marine.
Get out of here before it's too late.
This is my childhood. I've played so much of this.
Yeah. The soundtrack for this is so good too. It's so iconic.
We,
I don't know like a big first-person shooter, but it's like if you were growing up at the time, of course you would.
yeah, can we get done for copyright on this? Just an aside.
Huh?
Can we get done for copyright off that, actually?
I
don't know, actually.
Like to watch trailers.
Yeah, I wasn't sure if the OST. I don't know.
Oh, yeah, maybe we might have to clip it out, but we'll see.
Yeah, I just thought of
maybe
that.
I don't do the music for these. We'll do that in the future. So.
Yeah.
But this had like obviously really good vibes.
Yeah, and then 2 was really good too. And then they've, I think it was 3 that was sort of a little bit mixed, but it was still pretty good.
No. 3 was a huge phenomenon. 2 was, people didn't really like. It seemed like you were going to be saving the Earth. You know, like, oh, we're going to save the Earth, and then you're spending half the time playing as an alien, and that people didn't like that as much. I think there were some other things too people didn't like. I can't remember what they all were, but anyway, you can see the cutscene. So now they've, Halo 1 was a phenomenon with basically very little in the way of cinematics. Like there was some, but it used mostly in-game like rendering. This you can see is clearly not in-game rendering. This is pre-rendered stuff. But the graphics are way better. And this is also interesting too, I think, because if you think about it, you're making a video game, like you spend all this money doing this cool trailer. Like people like it, like it's cool, but it's also like didn't really help them sell a ton more. I don't think. Like people were sort of more frustrated with 2 than anything. But it was still, it was not like a dud, but it didn't like live up to 1 quite as much.
Yeah, okay. I remember I only played through Halo 3 like once or twice. I played shitloads of Halo 2. I always thought it was the better of the 2, but I was just looking some stuff up, and a lot of other people think that Halo 3 is a better campaign than 2, but has some writing issues. So like is more polished than Halo 2. Yeah, there you go.
Yeah. Halo 3 had some kind of wild trailers too. They had that one that was like the like miniature thing. I don't know if I have that here. I might oh no, I don't think so. But this is all in engine, which I think you can tell gamers tend to prefer, like cool in engine stuff than cinematics. Yeah. And like these things are all pretty cool, like getting picked up, like picking the dude up, punching him, these huge fucking guns.
Yeah, I don't know if
ships and stuff were.
Yeah, I don't know if you guys had this when you were a kid, but like a Best Buy thing or something. But they used to have demo Xbox consoles, and they had Halo 2 on the Xbox console, and you come in after school and just play a shit ton of split screen Halo 2 for like hours in the afternoon. Yeah, this was.
You could see that like Walmart, I remember, and then. I don't remember what other play. There would be like a few stores where they would have like different consoles or stuff, and you could play. That was always like as a kid, you're like, oh man. As soon as you get in the car, it's like direct line to the console. Yeah,
we had it was called Harvey Norman, and similar sort of idea. You know, it was all like white goods and electronics or whatever. And yeah, this was in the electronics section of a demo, and they had hooked up to some Logitech Z5500 speakers, like with the massive subwoofer, because the guys in there are just big nerds, and they've just got all this wired into their stuff because the company owns the equipment. So yeah, it was sick.
So I think something, if you're watching this trailer too, is like the scope of it is so huge. Like the vibes and the world building are like enormous. And it's also like the vehicles are super important, which was, I mean, that was like one of the things that was most important in Halo 1 was like riding around on the Warthog and stuff, like with the zoomed out third person view. It was so important. Basically the size and scale of like a lot of these shots, they really make you feel like you're living in this big world that has all these ships in it. And the things you're riding around, like there's actual ships and people jump out of the ships. It's such cool world building, how all these things work together.
I remember the story from Halo 2. There was a lot more nuance too, because you had the Arbiter's side of things, and you had that I can't remember what the term is for it, but like you're playing as two different protagonists throughout the game, and then they kind of meet up at the end. Yeah, that was pretty cool. Like at least for the time, from what I remember of it.
This is the Scarab boss fight, I think, in Halo 3. Does this remind you of anything, looking at this?
I want to say, wait, I don't know. Arc Raiders, you mean? Or
Yeah.
yeah. I was like, yeah.
It's like, this is cool shit. There's like little dudes in the back who's trying to blow these fuckers up.
Yeah, that's cool. Then you get Marines running around on the ground.
This is the cool kind of shit that sells games. Like having these huge boss things you're fighting. And I think this is on easy difficulty in this video. But like that laser beam and stuff would basically one hit kill you if you were playing on hard. So like when the big gun hit you, like these were existential.
Yeah, well, even you didn't even have to have bosses in the game sometimes. Even I remember in Halo 1, yet in the Silent Cartographer, that gold-plated elite would just come out of nowhere with a sword and just murder you instantly if you didn't know he was there.
Yeah.
Like they didn't even have to be a boss to be genuinely dangerous.
Okay, so this is Halo 3, and if we go back to our little infographic, they made so much money for Microsoft. They produced games that were basically like cultural icons. they defined the first-person shooter genre for a long time. And they were more than just basic first-person shooters. Like you can see, they did huge amounts of world building. They had cool stories that resonated with a lot of people. They had it was like, I mean, you could play PvP, obviously, right? But they had huge, like, great campaigns with great PvE, really cool things to fight. And the things you fought, like, helped build the world as well. There's these huge machines and aliens and stuff. Huge runaway success. But Bungie ended up buying their independence from Microsoft. So they become independent, but as part of that deal, they had to leave the Halo IP with Microsoft. Which is pretty interesting because Microsoft then went on to completely fuck up, as I think you were mentioning, that IP. They completely destroyed it.
Yeah, well,
so
Bungie didn't want to be the Halo, so they didn't want to be stuck making Halo games forever. That was the whole thing. And Microsoft was basically just like, no, you sit there and you make Halo games. And then Bungie's like, all right, well, no, screw you. And then, so I don't think they really cared about, well, I mean, obviously you care about it, but, I think they were kind of okay with leaving the Halo IP behind and because they wanted to make their own stuff.
Yeah, that's fair. But there was some magic in a bottle. With that IP, with that team, they really did amazing stuff. They continued to work on Halo once they went independent. They made Halo ODST and then Halo Reach, and both these were, I think people had some quibbles about each of them because they're not part of they're not like a sequel in terms of the timeline and the events. It's kind of a separate, it's the same world but separate events, is my understanding.
Yeah, from what I remember, oh yeah, for sure. What I remember about the main thing with those two was that they changed around a lot of the mechanics. Like you had sprint and you had activatable abilities like armor lock and what do they call them? Like what was the shield thing? Hard light shields or something. So they changed a few of the mechanics around that players who had been playing since the early days really didn't like. But the campaigns were bangers. Like people still quote stuff from the campaigns today. Again, big cultural hits. So, and it's pretty crazy that like even, I mean, it's probably not entirely accurate. Like it's a little bit hyperbolic, but even like Bungie not really giving a crap about what they're making, or not really giving a crap, but like they're on their way out the door. They've still made games that are better than pretty much anything that 343 has managed to make since, which is pretty wild.
Yeah, clearly they still had the sauce when they made these. And it's also interesting because they left Microsoft like, hey, we want to be independent. By the way, Activision, we have like a lot of monthly payroll and stuff we have to make. Would you mind helping us? And so Activision basically becomes a publisher. And so they have more independence than they did with Microsoft. Because Microsoft wasn't just a publisher, they owned them. And with Activision, it's a publishing deal, so they have a lot of autonomy. Activision pays a lot of the bills, and then they have different ways they split up the money. I think the way it was, because I think it got revealed in some court filings, was that the split was, I think 25% of proceeds would go to, and I think it's maybe after like the publishing costs are recouped from Activision, 25% of the proceeds would go to Bungie, and then that number would scale up to I think 35% once it sold 400 million. So I think that's sort of how that worked. And they released Destiny, and I think we need to look at the Destiny 1 trailer, because I think there's strong evidence that basically there was lightning in a bottle through at least the first part of Destiny 1. Pretty much, I think, through most of the Destiny 1 DLCs. But we'll look at the trailer, and I think it's going to be indicative that there's still lightning in a bottle at this point.
I know what you're about to do. It's brave. There are enemies out here you would not believe. But they've never seen anything like you.
Okay, we probably don't need to watch the whole thing, but
Yeah.
I think this was sick.
Yeah, you can clearly see there's a lot of the elements and that they've evolved on it. You know, they've still got that same best-in-class gunplay, all the world building and characters and the crazy sci-fi lore. And, you know, you can see that they've honed their craft.
This shot is so
even.
badass. Holy shit. Like, look at that. That's so cool.
Yeah, I remember playing the demo for this. Was it the beta test? I played that for this, but I didn't end up buying it because it's something to do with because it was only on, I think it was only on Xbox and PlayStation or something, and
I think it was,
didn't end up doing it.
Yeah, I'm trying to remember which one was. No, yeah, it was Xbox and PlayStation. That's right. And then Destiny 2 became also PC. So
yeah, that was the big thing. Oh, that was why I played it, because I was just like, oh, sweet, it's actually on PC now.
Yeah. So vibes for this, I think, super epic. They've got really cool, like that. It's super atmospheric. The combat looks amazing. You got these huge things you're fighting, like these little. Where's the little scene where they're shooting the robot? It was only for just a second. Anyway, that was huge. Oh, here's a gameplay clip of fighting a robot. I'll turn the volume down.
Yeah, when this one's done, there's interesting parallel between what happened with both of these games and I guess Marathon as well.
Yeah, like how fucking cool was this? Look at this.
Yeah, it's sick. They still have these in Destiny 2 as well. The thing is, Destiny 1 and 2 both had live service issues, because I think it might have been kind of a newish thing. But they both lost almost all of their player base after launch because they had content droughts and the grind was too repetitive. And and then both times they've had to basically rebuild the player base, rebuild the trust, and, you know, put out enough content to keep players occupied and that sort of thing, which they've done with both games. And they're not the only live service game that's done this. Like, I remember The Division really shit the bed after it came out. Like, it was good for about a month or two, and then everyone was like, okay, there's nothing really here. And it took them years to get that back, you know, get players back. And then right when they got really interested in it, was it Massive were like, oh, okay, that's it, you know, it's end of life, whatever. So yeah, it's not just a Bungie problem, it's a live service problem, I think. But yeah, it's just interesting that both of them had the same issue.
Yeah. So that was Destiny 1, and they had a bunch of expansions they launched, and then they did the Destiny 2. And we'll watch the Destiny 2 trailer here. I'm just going to say before we watch it, I feel like the vibes are not as good in this one. I feel like there's a definite vibe downtick. So we'll see if you agree. Here we go.
Mm-hmm.
The city is secure. Those who fled are being hunted, and those foolish enough to remain have been executed.
Do you see all that I have done?
The war's over. And we've lost.
Our numbers will continue to dwindle. We can no longer protect
Lance Reddick,
ourselves.
that's the voice of him, by the way. Zavala.
Say what?
You know that Lance Reddick is the voice of Zavala, that blue guy?
Oh, I didn't know that.
Yeah. R.I.P.
Cool.
We all know what needs to be done.
Get up close and personal with golf, put a bullet in his head, then maybe eat a sandwich.
An outright assault was doomed to fate. There will be no coming back.
It's worth it.
If the Red Legion want war,
Give them war. Humanity never deserved power. I am gone, and I alone am worthy.
Okay, we probably don't need to watch. I'll leave the rest playing in the background. But what did you think of that, Sean?
I think it's a different vibe, but I think part of it is, so when Destiny 1 came out, it was a brand new IP. Like, there wasn't really all, years of established lore and all that sort of thing. Whereas Destiny 2, a lot of this stuff, like, the Red War, the Legion, the Vex, all that kind of thing, like that's already from the first game, because Destiny 2 in a lot of ways was kind of, in some ways was kind of almost a rehash of the first game with, the same kind of enemies, I think a lot of the weapons are the same, a lot of the gameplay elements are the same. So I think that's part of why, because everything's already been established and around for years. So it kind of feels, I don't know, like it's different, but sort of a little samey too, kind of thing.
Yeah. My thoughts were, so this is like very kind of subliminal vibes on it, but it has like an MCU kind of feel to it. Like this has been like Marvelized a little bit.
Oh yeah, fucking what is this? Nathan Fillion as Cade. That was the dude that was trying to make all the stuff. Oh, we're gonna kill him. We're gonna kill the dude and then eat a sandwich. Yeah.
Yeah.
Nathan Fillion playing as Nathan Fillion.
But also the look too. Like there's a weird, and how these things are shot. These are like this is like the bit where the heroes are walking in. It's like, Superman, Wonder Woman, and so, right? And they're all doing the hero strut forward. It's like a kind of, I don't know. There's something about the vibes here that I just, like, it feels much more like it's basically like the theater kids are more involved in making this. Like there's more, it feels much more like a play than it does like a gritty, like, real world sort of thing that Destiny 1 had. But maybe I'm totally off on that.
Well, that'd be the right era for it too, because that would have been what peak MCU, like Avengers, that kind of thing. And there's Joss Whedon's got a lot to answer for with writing. But it was sort of like, it basically took over the whole industry almost. Everyone was writing like this. Although I got to say, like with regards to the cinematic side of it, they still do banger cinematics even now. it's pretty crazy.
Yeah, I mean, this isn't bad. I don't look at this and think, oh, people aren't going to buy this game. No, like people are going to buy the game. But because I think there's a lot of times where it's like, especially when you're looking at franchises and how they move through time, is that like there's a golden era a lot of times, and then there's like, okay, we start to see, like it's still there. It still has some of the magic, but like it's lost some of its luster. And I don't know, that's sort of
Yeah.
how I see this trail. Like, it's still good. Like, if I were into this game, I would probably still buy it, you know? But it's like, it just doesn't have, it doesn't have the peak vibes that the first one had.
Yeah, well, by this point, there's something we were talking about before we started recording. Like, it's that Ship of Theseus thing. Like, you know, is this the same Bungie? Because obviously they've had people that have left over time, and I think a few of them came back, and now they're, you know, I think most of the guys that were there have been fired or left, and it's just like, you know, so they've taken on, you know, new writers, new animators, all that sort of thing, and then you're not, and then there's that argument of, you know, are you getting the same product? And it's, I would say no. You know, if you don't have the same team who made the original stuff, there's that institutional knowledge that you don't really have anymore. So, and you can see there is a vibe shift there. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, and like the vibes of leadership and stuff, you know, that changes as people cycle through. And it's not just like the top leadership, it's also like, you know, team leads and things like that.
Yeah, different direction.
Yeah. So this all happened while they were with Activision, but they ended up parting ways with Activision. It was kind of interesting. I was curious as to whether Activision made money, and they likely made a good bit of money, not like Call of Duty money, but they made a lot of money off Destiny. But it was very expensive. Like, the burn rate for the studio was very high, and while they were making money, it was sort of like the kind of money where you felt like if you take like one wrong move and it makes up for a lot of your past successes. And of course, as the publisher, they're having to write checks. They had, I think, like they were going to do 4 different games 4 years apart or something like that. That was part of the publishing deal, like a kind of big thing. And of course, there were different clauses where different sides could back out if not enough money was made or too much money was spent or things like that. But they ended up basically sort of having like it was kind of like an amicable breakup. It was like, oh, yeah, you know, we're just not into you. We're kind of starting to look at other people, you know? And then the other person's like, yeah, I feel like the sparks kind of died. And then they sort of split up and went their way. The big thing for Bungie was that they kept Destiny 2 as an IP, which I think makes sense because that IP probably wouldn't have had that much value with Activision. You know, it's like the Ship of Theseus, except like literally it all gets swapped out at once. I don't even think you can call it the Ship of Theseus if all you take is the IP and it's a completely new team from like the next day. It's not like it's slowly been, I think the Ship of Theseus is things get like slowly transitioned out.
Yeah, not just replacing the entire studio. But I think at the time, Sony hadn't really tried. They weren't really doing their pivot into live service yet. I could be wrong here. I haven't fact checked myself.
Yeah.
But Bungie's whole thing was basically, you know, because they were the live service guys from Destiny and from their multiplayer stuff with Halo, is that they were supposed to sort of kickstart the live service era at Activision. And then, then they've just let them do their own thing. And now they've tried pumping out their own live service stuff afterwards, which I think have almost all failed, but that's a different subject. So that was kind of their whole thing, was they've come in, they've sort of kickstarted the live service stuff and then headed off to do their own thing. Yeah.
So 2019, they split up basically. And then I believe it was in 2022 when they got acquired by Sony. And they made some DLCs and stuff, or expansions, I think on their own, self-publishing. And some of these were really well received. I know the Witch Queen was super well received. I think Lightfall, not as much, we were saying. But we can actually look at that on the chart here.
I can kind of... with regards to Destiny 2, or how it launched, it had the content out and all the rest of it. It was around the Forsaken expansion that it finally, you know, brought back a lot of players and had the... You know, they had a decent amount of content and that sort of thing. And then it kept going in the other direction. And then the Witch Queen was really good. That was probably a peak, you know, narratively, gameplay-wise, content-wise, that sort of thing. And then after that, it started to take a dive again, pretty much.
Yeah, but you can see that with the Witch Queen, they were getting back up to like, this is like fully back up to release numbers, which is huge. I mean, ideally, with an expansion, you go even above release, which they sort of did here with Lightfall. But, you know, with all this content they kept releasing, and I think it was, they had 4 seasons a year, I think. So, I mean, it's just a steady stream of content. And I think that was part of the reason why Activision sort of didn't like it. It was just so expensive to keep this game running, to have this many people making all this content. But they kept the numbers high. Like, for a very long time, the numbers were like they would dip briefly below 100,000, and then they would get jump up to around 200, 300K, depending on how big the release was, and people would play for a bit and then fall off again. So, but this was working, but you can see after this last one, episode 1 Echoes, it just, they never, like they couldn't, 100,000 was no longer the floor, it became the ceiling. And so when people are looking at it and they're like, oh, you know, Marathon killed Destiny 2, I mean, maybe because this probably was about the period of time, like right around here, when they probably started taking people from the Destiny team and put them on Marathon potentially.
Yeah,
so
well,
maybe that's part of the reason, but I think more...
Well, there is that argument floating around, and it probably has some sort of validity to it, but like I was just outlining before, okay, yes, it's dropped off later on, you know, around 2025, but it's not a new thing for Bungie too. They have massive player base dips way back at the start, right after they launched the game. So I don't think Marathon's the only factor here. There's just something about maybe they're lacking cohesion in the direction, or they've tried to, you know, with the TV series, how it runs on longer than it needs to. Maybe they've just tried to do that and then started running out of ideas. I'm not sure, but you know, I definitely think there is some validity to the Marathon taking resources away, because even though Bungie's a huge studio, obviously you're still going to be taking resources from something to add to something else. You can't just make two things with the same team. But yeah, there's probably something to it.
I think this is like, this product's a bit end of life. You know, it's like, I think the TV analogy is great. It's a TV show. They've started to recycle plot points, so they don't really have a story they want to tell anymore. They just have to come up with the next episode. So, you know, it's like, okay, why are they sunsetting Destiny 2? It's because the stuff when they used to, like this one, season 18, they got up to 200K when they released it. You know, here they did Festival of the Lost. That was at like what, 40K.
Yeah, I will say something.
To the 9, it was at 50K. Like, it's a 4x down, and if your break-even point is 100K, like, you're well below it.
Yeah, well, I remember. I just thought of this now. Bungie did a few things to really piss off their player base too, particularly later on in life with Destiny 2. Like they did this thing called sunsetting, where basically they decided, a lot of the weapons in the sandbox are now considered overpowered, or they're kind of busted and they don't really work with the player with sandbox. So they would make it that you couldn't upgrade the weapons anymore. Like, they essentially made them useless to players. And players, some of those weapons, some of the items that you get, you could put in hundreds of hours to get them. So that pissed off a lot of players. And also they did another thing they called vaulting content. And essentially eventually they had to backpedal on this because people were so pissed off about it. But it was something to do with what they claimed was to do with the install size of the game. And they were saying the game's getting really big now. It's something, I can't remember what the size was. It was something massive. I think it was like over 120 gig or something. I can't remember what it is, but it was really big anyway. And they were saying, as part of this strategy to reduce the install size, we're going to start locking away content and then maybe bring it back at other times, like a vault sort of thing. And we just bring it out and try and refresh it and you know, rotate around content. And people get really, really angry about it because a lot of that stuff they had actually paid for.
170 gigabytes.
Yeah. Well, the thing is, yeah, well, people get really pissed about it because a lot of this stuff was content that they had paid for because it was part of paid expansions.
Oh,
and then Bungie's just like, oh, yeah, we're just going to take this away and hide it in a vault somewhere. And everyone's like, what the fuck? So, yeah, they made some really serious blunders around probably the midpoint of Destiny 2's lifespan that really upset a lot of the players as well. So I think part of it, too, is they've lost a lot of goodwill with the player base.
Yeah. The other thing is you have to remember that so Sony acquired Bungie for $3.6 billion. This was in 2022. And that was because, as you were saying, they wanted to get into live service. If we come back and we look at 2022, there were up to 300 people just on Steam, right? And we also have PlayStation and Xbox, right? Just on Steam, 300K players at peak. Just about. And then the trough would like occasionally barely dip its toe under 100K, and then the little smaller releases would be like back up to almost 200. You know, so like the average was probably like 150 if you were to average it through this whole period of time. And when we're looking at like how much is this studio that Sony has bought now? Well, from the Destiny perspective, what was once averaging 100K is now for this last period averaging like 20K, or 150K is now averaging like 20K. And the way these studios work is that they have a pretty big fixed cost. So if you have a bigger player count than that, and therefore more revenue, you're going to make money. And if you have less than the amount to cover your fixed costs, you lose money. So almost certainly they're in the deep red here. Like deep red, just from the Destiny perspective.
Well, they've been talking about changing their monetization strategies, and for a couple of years now, they've been charging people more and more for expansions. So, yeah, I'd say definitely are, and they're trying to find new ways to squeeze money out of the players or save costs, and talking about smaller scale expansions. So a lot of the, I don't know about, well, maybe the quality as well, but the quantity of content that's being released for how much you're paying for it is dropping as well. So, I would say people at this point are probably just getting a bit fed up with it.
Yeah, so that's sort of like circling the drain a bit. So yeah. So for Sony though, they paid like 3.6 billion. What did they buy? They basically bought the Destiny IP and the team that made it, right? And they probably made some money a little bit. I mean, maybe not when you factor in like cost of capital, but like Destiny was throwing off cash for sure. But then they were probably spending it on Marathon for a period. But now they're definitely not. And if we come back now, I think now it's time that we watch the Marathon trailer, because we need to talk about what has happened with the shift from Destiny 2 to Marathon.
Is there a sign of life in what's beyond? It's like it out and life will call me good. In flames I will die for what I want. And I want more.
Okay, it's 140K, not a lot. What are your thoughts watching this? Have you seen this before?
No, I haven't actually.
Only released 2 months ago. Yeah.
Yeah, I remember seeing, I can't remember which trailer I saw. It was a completely different trailer to this anyway.
This is a different one. This one had more views. Well, I want to hear your thoughts on this, and we'll watch, because I've got 3 different Marathon things to watch.
I don't really know what to think about. Like, it seems sort of almost disjointed. There's a whole bunch of different things going on. Yeah, it doesn't. I don't know. Like, it does. The combat parts, it explains it pretty well what the game is. But then you have a whole lot of different bouncing around in that. Like, maybe they're trying to focus on story stuff, which you do get in Marathon. Like, I've got it, and I've had a look. There's a lot of codex and lore stuff like with Halo, but there's not a lot of. I don't think there's a lot of like actual in mission world building stuff. So I don't know. I don't really know what to think of it.
I think it's like there's kind of this idea that like unless you do something super unique, that people aren't going to want to buy your game. Like, oh, we have to have like a really unique art style, or we have to do something like that. And I don't think that exactly pans out. Like, I think you need to have a vision that is definitively yours, and you have to have something you want to do. Like, I think if you're chasing trends and stuff, that probably isn't going to bode as well. And you can't have a style. Like, styles are fine, but you don't. like things in general should resonate. And I think the important thing when you think about like whether something resonates is like you're doing a movement over here, like you're producing some vibration, and that vibration is touching something over here, which in this case is like the player. And it's like a resonant frequency. Like that vibration makes the player thing like really resonate hard. So usually what that means is you're evoking something that the player is already like really attached to. You know, so we have tons of things that we see as we grow up in connection to like what war is, what love is, what, you know, like evocative landscapes are and things like that. And this just is like a hard departure from all of those things. Like when we saw the Destiny 1 trailer, there were a bunch of scenes in that gave like really intense vibes because it's resonating with you. It's adjacent. It's not something you've exactly seen before, but it's adjacent to it. This is just like almost more than any game I've seen trailers for recently. This game is just so, it's like breaking everything. You know, it's like, this is how people look. It's like this really, like, this isn't what soldiers look like. This isn't a soldier. This is like a cosplay Halloween outfit, you know, like, and that's fine. There's nothing wrong with it, but like, you're not getting the resonance of this is something that people already think and care about.
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, these guys aren't meant to be soldiers either. They're, well, we call them runners. So they're basically kind of disposable mercenaries almost, sort of thing. And because they're in these shells, which are basically like clones, and they are expendable, and they'll just die and get replaced over and over again. And this is just trying to lean heavily because it's very cyberpunky kind of aesthetic, and I think this is just to lean into that. I mean, bits of it I do think look a bit over the top, but yeah, they're not meant to be like soldiers, you know, in any sort of camo or navy outfits or whatever. Yeah,
no, that's what I'm saying. Like, they're achieving what they're trying to. But I'm saying the thing they're achieving doesn't resonate. It's like not a thing people already have. Like, nobody looks at this and thinks like, oh, I've got really strong feelings about like this character or something. It's just like random and kind of weird, you know? I don't know.
Yeah, so it says they're biosynthetic customizable bodies inhabited by human consciousnesses, so you can transfer your consciousness between the shells. Yeah, very cyberpunky sort of thing. But I don't know, the vibe I kind of got from that was it feels disconnected too. Like there's no, might be kind of what you're getting at, you know, like there's no real connection to a story or, there doesn't seem to be really a connection to the world. It's all very, you know, there's just people shooting each other and whatever, which kind of leans into the aesthetic of it, sort of, because then, you know, these guys they're not fighting for their home or whatever. They basically are sort of just mercenaries. And I remember, was it Escape from Tarkov did a trailer like this too, and it was mercenaries fighting with each other. It was definitely grittier and I think better than this, but yeah, similar sort of vibe.
How many views that has? What do you know what the trailer's called?
I'll have a quick look. It would show up early, maybe. It might actually be the film.
Battle for
Sorry,
Concordia, is it?
No. I think it might actually be quite long. I think it might actually be the movie.
Oh.
Yeah, maybe not. It's a sick movie though. I think it's just the announcement. Hang on, I'll link it to you. Not sure if it's the exact one, but it should give an idea of the vibe anyway.
Yeah, 1.8 million views, but 10 years ago. This already has better vibes.
Yeah, if you go forward a bit, it's got actual combat and that sort of thing. They're about to go into it, I think. It's more gritty and human.
Yeah.
Which, I mean, to be fair, the shotrunners aren't meant to really be human, but yeah.
Yeah. No, it's not like what I'm trying to say certainly isn't everything needs to be gritty realism. You know, like Warcraft obviously was like a super popular thing and it was super stylized. But it was still and I think, I mean, I don't know, it's easy to come up with like a definition for this, but it was clearly something that resonated with people, even though it was stylized. So I think that's a lot of what like commercially successful art is figuring out what resonates with people and then like figuring out how that kind of blends with your style and what you want to do and kind of figuring out that intersection. This is just too out there, I think.
Yeah, well, I think this kind of leans into the whole studio problem. You know, they're having issues with the kind of direction they want to go in and chasing trends. And we've just seen now that we're going into Marathon, we've seen now that they, right up until launch, they were very hard against, we don't want to do anything PvE related, you know, because they were worried about cannibalizing the Destiny 2 player base, basically, from what I understand it. Right. Not that it matters now anyway, because it's end of life, but they went, you know, this is going to be purely like an extraction shooter, no PvE. And now they've come into it and they've lost how many players? Like 98% of their players or something crazy. I don't think it's that much actually, but a shitload of their players. And then to the point where they've gone
a week.
Yeah. Yeah, well, I think it was, what was it, like 88%? I'd have to look it up again. But now they've just realized, oh crap, like we're in an existential crisis here because we didn't do the thing that we should have done. And now they're trying to have to hard pivot.
I mean, I think the thing is that if you have the people who are making your games and they have really weird, random taste that's not going to resonate with a lot of people, like it's probably just not going to be good. Like none of this, like, yeah, this is different. This is super different. It's a certain special kind of style. But like, this isn't the fantasy I don't think anybody has to live in a world like this. Like this just isn't, like, guys do have fantasies about being like a mercenary or something, you know?
You know what this makes me think of? You ever seen one of those weird, like, backwards Russian bands with music videos that just look super weird and messed up? Like the whole thing with the guy in the garden with the flamethrower thing, that just gave me that sort of vibe. It's so weird now.
That's exactly. This is like if you have like you're just doing like a crazy music video. Like that's actually what I'm thinking about now that you said it. Looking at it, like, this would be a sick music video. Like
some kind of weird
video,
like noir piece or something.
You put this onto, I'd be like, fuck yeah, you know. But this is like, it's not like a world I want to live in. I don't want to be that character, like a goddamn clown, you know. Like this just is not an interesting world at all to me. Like this just looks stupid. I mean, I think the thing is that things that sell well usually don't see that. Like people will just be like, oh, this game looks fucking awesome. It looks epic, right? They don't like commenting on the artwork is a bit of a tell. So let's see. Yeah, cinematic value. Glad we got this piece of pure art. This is actually, I think, like the death kiss for a game. If these are your top things, like pure art, like that's not, I don't think, what you want if you want to make money making a video game.
Yeah, well, it makes you think of some sort of independent film or something like that, not a AAA shooter. You know, there's something you play at like Cannes, one of those Cannes music video, what do they call them, movie festivals? You know, one of those weird ones they do in France or whatever.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, I think you can't deny that this is artistic, right? This is definitely like a very distinct style. It's nothing like you've seen before. It's like, in some ways, very well put together. It's like this super intense style. I mean, it's kind of cool. Like if it were a music video, it would be cool. But it's just like not a world people care about or want to live in. It's not an interesting fantasy. And I think this can make it really hard if you're a game studio and you're making these things. Because you show this to people and like people see that you're putting a ton of effort into making something and you're trying to be creative. They want to say nice things to you. They're like, oh, it's beautiful. Like what great art.
I think.
But what they don't say is like, I don't fucking care about this, which is sort of how they feel. And it's why when we come over here and we look at Marathon.
I think something with this too. This is something I brought up, I think, when we were talking about Civ 7 ages ago too. It's finding that balance between creative license and remembering that you're making a product, like something that you want people to play, and you have to be able to tell them what that is. And it's sort of like clearly tell them, okay, this is what this game is. And you got all these crazy lore dumps and stuff going on in those trailers. Like I've played the game, I've played Halo. I still couldn't tell you what most of that stuff was. I know what New Caloric. I know what a few of those things are, but most of that stuff I wouldn't have a clue. And it's not doing a good job of I think that's what it's come down to. Is it's like, yeah, okay, you want to make your Flash trailers, but yeah, you're still trying to sell something to people, and they're not. I think that's what gets me. Is it's like they're not doing a good job of telling you what that thing is, with all the like weird esoteric crap that they put in there.
Yeah, I mean, I think some of these things are not very complicated. You look at like Ark Survival Evolved, and you're like, why did that game do well? It had a bunch of problems, but a ton of people played it, and it's like, why did that game do well? Let me see if I can pull it up here. Do you want to guess?
What? How many players they've got?
No. Just guess why this game did well.
Oh, remember, it's something like it was a little more PvE oriented, so it was less scary for players. And
oh, come on, I'm going for
cooler
something way
vibe.
simpler.
Oh, you mean the cooler vibe with the robots? Sorry, Ark Survival Evolved. I think it's Ark Raiders. What's wrong with me?
Oh yeah, no, this one.
Yeah, I don't know. I never really paid any attention to Ark, to be honest. It just looked like Rust, and that killed any desire I had to play it.
It's really simple. Like, the kids love dinosaurs, and if you could like fight dinosaurs or even ride them, like how cool would that be to be able to ride dinosaurs around? Like that would be so much fun. And this is like robots and dinosaurs, but like at some level, the fantasy of the game has to be something people are interested in. I'm not saying everybody needs like a dinosaur game or something, but like, what is the fantasy of Marathon is being like a clown robot that has a human consciousness placed in it. I mean, nobody really cares about this, but like people care about riding dinosaurs. I mean, so I think the thing is, like, if you're the head of the studio, is the thing you're doing something people care about? Is this something people have strong beliefs about, that people are attached to?
I was just kind of thinking, I was thinking of Ark Raiders. Because obviously it's got that stronger PvE thing where, players they can be fighting each other, but they're also kind of half united against a common enemy with the robots. Mm-hmm. And I was thinking that's sort of like a Terminator kind of vibe, right? You're a Skynet and you got the Terminators and that sort of thing. Maybe there's some kind of weird, not primal, but like
soon to be real life.
Inherited.
Elon's literally making Skynet.
Yeah. But I was like, maybe that kind of leans into that, and people have already got that social, like, ingrained knowledge of things like that, and then it just kind of works off that. I don't know, but I mean, there's different gameplay elements I think that make people stay with Ark Raiders as opposed to Marathon as well.
So here's another trailer. They have a lot of them. Oh, this one had a really cool soundtrack.
That's pretty sick. I do actually like the aesthetic of the in-game, though. Like, it doesn't look all weird and photorealistic like in the trailer there.
Yeah.
It's a bit more stylized. I actually kind of like the vibe of it, even though it's kind of all over the place a bit.
Yeah. So, kind of cool. This one got 22 million views, so a lot of views. So this was pretty much their best trailer.
I think that's the one I've seen.
This was the announcement trailer. And this also is like less weird than the other trailers, and kind of cooler vibe and better soundtrack, I think. But now let's compare it to Ark Raiders, because this was in many ways like they came out at about the same time. This one had way more interest.
Doors are closing in 5.
They said the world above had ended. But endings are only for those who forgot how to begin again. So you learn to listen, to move quiet, think fast. Be ready to change your mind. Up there, the roads are twisted. The rules are gone. But if you are brave enough to wander and seek, who knows what you might find.
Don't shoot.
Okay. Don't need to watch the whole thing again, but the thoughts on this, Sean?
Well, it's certainly a different vibe to Marathon. It's giving you that.
Yeah.
But yeah, like I was thinking almost that Terminator vibe. You know, everyone's kind of united against the robots and they're terrified of this massive existential threat. So, and they're, you know, trying to keep themselves alive, sort of struggling to keep themselves alive and that kind of thing. Yeah.
Yeah, I think the robots in this are so cool. And if you studied how they like made them, they have like really cool procedural limb animation and stuff for all of them, like how the spiders move around. But like that shot's so fucking cool. These drones, so cool. So I mean, fighting huge machines as like an underground human thing, I think that is a fantasy that people find interesting. While like killing a bunch of clowns, like robot clowns, I don't think is appealing of a concept. Like, so, but I think the other thing too is like Arc Raiders is hardcore, and these hardcore PvP things do tend to. It's like this one is showing all of them. So this is Destiny 2, right? Launched at 300k, occasionally would peak back up. Arc Raiders went higher, all the way up to like 500k, but then is like falling back down towards like 100k. I think it's 80 something right now.
Yeah.
But this is like 6 months after launch. I mean, this is obviously like a huge success for Embark.
Oh yeah. Embark kind of has a trend of doing this. You know, they did, what was that other game? Because they're ex-Dice devs and they did that game.
How they did the casino,
the heist thing. Yeah, I can't remember what it was called now. I'd have to look it up again. But it did quite well. I think they're still releasing stuff for it, but it was supposed to be like a heist, like a team-based heist thing, and with really destructible environments. They seem to be really good at doing this, and they also seem to be one of the only studios that seems to be able to get games on UE5 to run properly. So that's something too. Yeah, but they did well with that, and they seem to have a really good way of they make something that is based around existing trends, but they put a spin on it that works, kind of thing. Like with Arc Raiders, okay, it's an extraction shooter. The extraction shooters are becoming a fairly popular genre, I suppose, somewhat popular genre, even though they're generally not really that accessible, and they've managed to make it. Yes, it's still an extraction shooter and still has hardcore elements, but it's more accessible than pretty much anything else on the market. And it's got much stronger PvE elements than just about anything else on the market. So I think that's why it's managed to retain so many players, because it's not so sweaty.
Yeah. So I think to me, Marathon's pretty interesting because they probably spent at least $250 million to make it. I mean, Sony obviously spent a lot more than that to acquire BUNGiE. But it's performed so poorly. I think the estimated lifetime total revenue for them is around 50 million. So they're like a net negative 200 right now, just for just that one game. And I kind of have the feeling it's higher since their burn rate is very, very high. But I think this is a low enough player count. I don't think maybe you do one expansion, but I don't think they've killed Destiny 2. Marathon 2 is dead. Our Marathon is dead. There's no player count here. This is too small for a live service game. You remember Destiny 2 was coming down to like 100k. This is down at 10k, and it's going to keep going down. It's at 10k right now. It's probably going to go down to like 5k. And once you get to 5k, you're potentially at a point where it might die off completely. Because once you get down to 1,000, matchmaking starts slowing up. And once you get to 500, matchmaking becomes really hard. So if you have a game that ever flirts with like live service is really hard once you start getting close to 1,000 players, because like a bad series of events can cause it to like be an engine that you can't start back up.
Yeah,
so
well, I think the thing
they're
is,
killing Destiny 2. Marathon isn't worth making content for. I think they have to make a totally new game. Is what I think.
well, I think that's why they're trying to make this pivot, and it is. I don't think they've admitted to it, but it basically is a Hail Mary. Like if they can't make this work, then they're pretty much done. But the idea is, particularly now that they're not cannibalizing Destiny 2's player base, because Destiny 2 is at end of life, they're pivoting into making PvE modes similar to Nightfalls and Strikes from Destiny, but a lot more lethal, which I actually kind of like the idea of. Having played Marathon, the PvP side I find too sweaty to really get into, but if you had a PvE environment with that kind of like really fast, lethal gameplay, I think I'd actually be pretty keen on that. And the idea is basically to bring in a different player base that wouldn't even have been interested in Marathon in the first place because of the PvP side of it. But I think the thing is here too, like Destiny 2 and Marathon it is, yeah. And like Destiny 2 and Marathon are very different games. So when I try to compare this, I sort of more try to compare it to other extraction shooters. And I think Arc Raiders is more the exception than the rule. Like most of the games are sitting around your 15, 20,000, occasionally dipping a little lower. I think I saw something saying that occasionally some of them get down to around the 11, 12,000 mark. But the thing is, for a lot of those other studios, something I was saying before, is a lot of them like Crytek with Hunt Showdown, they go as low as, I think it was like 11, 12,000 players occasionally, but they're a much smaller studio and their game's been out for ages. Like this is a steady player base. And it's common to see a lot of players bleed off after launch, as long as you can maintain a sustainable player base at the end of it. Like we've got Hunt Showdown. I can't remember what their initial count was, but it's obviously dropped off. And now they're sitting around that 11, 12,000 mark, but they're okay with that because that's a steady player base. They're not going anywhere. Whereas Marathon has just it's basically just fallen off a cliff. Like there's no established player base.
Like Destiny 2 had a rough launch. Like it was not a great launch. They had a ton of players join, but like there were problems with the game, not enough content and stuff, people were saying, I think. But like you had 100,000 players after 90 days. Marathon's not at 100. So that's a drop of, you lose, 2/3 of your player count. If you treat this as the peak.
I think with Marathon too, I
can
see there being.
If you treat the opening as the peak, it's only like losing half of the player base over 3 months. Marathon though went from 86,000 to now they're at 12. So that's what is that? 86.
Well, you do that. I'll say one thing with this player count. They're so with a lot of extraction shooters, and Marathon isn't the exception. They do seasonal resets, and one of the first one of those is coming up in June. So I don't know for sure, but usually when they do, because you might get a lot of players at the moment that have dipped out because they've done everything they want to do in the current season, which comes down to content and that kind of thing. But I suspect when we get the season 1, which I think is due mid-June, which is also when they're going to be trying to do this PvE mode. So it's a big pivot. Like they're making a whole new gameplay mode, and they're doing the seasonal reset, because it basically resets everyone back to 0, and they're all starting on the same level playing field again. So I think you will see a spike then, because there's going to be a lot of people coming back for the start of the season. But there's no denying that they are in pretty serious trouble.
Depending on whether you count this or this is the peak. But if you count the actual opening days at the peak, it's a 50% drop. If you count this as the peak, then it's like a 60% drop. This is an 85% drop, and we're not even there yet. Like by the time we get to the end, it's going to be 9 out of 10 players have left.
Yeah.
So,
there's no denying it. They're in deep shit. Like any way you look at it, like even if they do make some sort of spike, I don't know, say they go up to 20,000 players or something, like, it's still a massive problem. They don't have, they're too big of a company to sustain that kind of loss.
If you have PvE, you have to not just do PvE, you have to like kill it. You need huge, robots or something you're going to fight, or like really cool, weird, diverse enemies. If you just put in like AI controlled players, essentially, like just humanoid guys that shoot the same kind of guns, I think is going to be completely dead. And going in and making really, really cool, like the enemies, like that was the tech of Arc Raiders, was figuring out how to do these really fucking cool robots that had all these really cool movement and behavior patterns and tuning that so it was fun. I mean, I don't know how you can do that with Marathon right now. Like, it's just, especially quickly, because you need to do like revolutionarily good PvE really fast. I mean, we'll see, but.
Well, the thing is with Marathon, like when we talk about PvE mode, it's not going to be AI controlled. Well, I don't think it will be AI controlled player characters that you're up against. They actually have, there's a thing with, I think basically every extraction shooter does this. They have some sort of neutral enemies. Like in Arc Raiders, for example, you've got robots. In Hunt Showdown, you've got zombies and monsters and stuff. Like I think the PvE mode is going to be using that version of what's in Marathon, and they've got like the UESC, the faction. They've got robots as like security guard kind of things, and they've got a bunch of them that roam around the map. So I think it's going to be something to do with that. And then, but then you still run into problems with enemy diversity, but there are quite a few different varieties of them. So yeah, I mean, we're not just talking about player controlled runners here. They're actually going to have other. Well, I bloody will hope they have other units anyway. They better, otherwise, yes, they are screwed. But yeah, I don't know. I think the thing is, if they can do a good job with it, I kind of think maybe they can pull it off, but it's a big ask. Like, you're talking about, well, like I said, you're basically trying to make half of a completely different game in, 4 months or something?
Yeah.
It's a really big ask, unless they were already doing it way beforehand.
Yeah. Yeah, and I mean, if you think about it, it fights against all the world building you have, right? Because you've already done all these cinematics. There's no fucking cool robots in any of those. Like, what are you gonna fight against? Other guys in the little stupid scooter they have, that little car that was zipping across the beach. I mean, I don't see how you. The world building's all fucked. Like, there's no way to introduce cool PvE. I don't think. I mean, maybe I get proven to be wrong. I think it's a completely dead IP. I think it's completely dead. I think if they invest more in it, it's wasted money. But we'll see.
I don't know. Yeah, I mean, having actually played it and spent a fair bit of time with it, and it's the thing is, this is what I was saying about the trailers. They don't really explain what the game is very well, right. Which, if you haven't actually played the game, would be completely understandable if you don't know about what's in it. But having actually played it and seeing what's there, like the way, because it's got nice wide open maps, and it's got plenty of stuff you can explore, and the enemies are actually kind of cool. Like I don't mind the UESC guys. We're not just talking two different kinds of robots here. You've got different varieties and different, you've got elite level ones that have abilities and things like that. And, they're not just empty maps. So I think if you do, I could see something like a strike mode from Destiny, that PvE style mode being viable, but they have to do a good job on it. And that's where I get to, can they actually pull that off in such a short amount of time? And I think the general consensus is probably not, but I hope that I'm disappointed. I hope that I'm proven wrong, because I actually wouldn't mind playing something like that in what they've laid out in the game already.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, so I think we have to close by answering the final question. Is Marathon Concord 3?
I don't think it is. I mean,
yeah.
If we go off the Concordian timeline, the thing with Concord and Highguard, both of them, they came out and they had this vibe, or not the vibe, they had this thing where the studios were really hard-headed and they had no coherent design, and they just kept saying, all of you were just haters, like, this is going to be such a good game. And they all died really quick. Like, the thing in common with Concord and Highguard is they both came out, they both went, we're going to be just fine. And then within, I think Highguard lasted like 3 weeks, and then Concord was a week. So they died really, really quick. And I think Marathon, I don't think Marathon is a bad game. It's just it's more they've tried to introduce it into a market that already doesn't have great player retention, and caters to a fairly small section of people who like shooters. So it's not a bad game. They've just made some bad choices about the market that they've entered into, I think. So I mean, if they can, that's what I was sort of thinking. If they can pivot with this PvE thing, it might actually work. But they need to really nail it to be able to do that. Like, it really is a Hail Mary. So no, I don't think it's another
I don't know.
Concorde, but I think they're going to be just as dead if they can't turn it around.
I think the thing that I'll make the devil's argument for why they are the third Concorde. I think the thing that unites all of these is these are not fantasies that anybody likes or cares about. Like, they're kind of a weird artistic style. Like, Concorde certainly has a weird artistic style. Highguard, I think, actually does not. I think out of all of these all share, like, Concorde, Marathon, and Horizon Hunters Gathering all share kind of like a kind of weird, super high saturated color art school kind of like vibe for like how they look. Like, they sort of look like art projects in a way. But they're also, I think, like designs and fantasies that don't really deeply resonate with people. Highguard does not share the same kind of like art school aesthetic. Like, nobody would look at Highguard and be like, oh, this is an art project or something. Like, nobody would look at Highguard and say, oh, this is like theater kids or something, really. Like, it's a total, these have like the art school theater vibes that Highguard doesn't have. But Highguard just has bad character design regardless. Like, it's not like it has bad character design because it was trying to like be super artsy and avant-garde. It just sort of had shitty characters that people didn't really like, and it was like a really kind of weird, like, the gameplay itself was like really weird.
Yeah, it's all mashed up. Yeah.
Open arena that you try to break in. Like, it just was like a super weird thing. So I think the argument for why it is that they all share this. They're trying to fulfill like a fantasy, or like they're trying to fulfill a player experience that nobody particularly wants. I think the difference for Marathon is that some people do want that fantasy for Marathon. I think that's almost like unarguable. Like, these are completely different like extinction curves. And Marathon entered with basically the same sort of like bad hype that Highguard had. And
yeah, the stolen art and all that, yeah.
Right. And despite that, it still had vastly more player count. So like, some people do like Marathon a lot. I think some people, and this might be the camp that like you're more in, like thought it was like okay, like it's fine, you know, but then like moved on with your life.
Yeah,
but
I think
nobody liked, like, Concorde people didn't even know about it.
No, well, the thing in common with Concorde and Highguard, I look at it more from the gameplay perspective. And the thing, I don't know as much about Concorde. I didn't follow it as closely as Highguard. But my understanding of it was that both of them had mashed a whole bunch of mechanics together that didn't work in the actual game. And for some reason, everyone kept telling them that it was fine and that it was about to launch, and people actually got it in the hands of the players out in the wild. And everyone was like, what the fuck is this? This is a mess. Like, Highguard was basically, they took mechanics from half a dozen different games and then mashed them together into one game, and none of it really made any sense. So whereas for all of its flaws with regards to art styles and that sort of thing with Marathon, it does have a fairly coherent gameplay loop. It's just not one that a lot of people enjoy because it's so sweaty. So I think that's probably affected the rate of player base decay, is that it actually does have a gameplay loop that makes sense, for want of a better way of explaining it.
That makes sense.
Yes, I mean, like, it's better, but it's still dying.
Yeah, I mean, the things I wasn't there in time to play Concorde during its very short lifetime, but the things I heard about it were that people really didn't complain much about the gameplay. Like, the gameplay, I think it's just sort of like a normal hero shooter. People were like, oh yeah, sort of everything works. Like, it wasn't a buggy release. I think it was mostly like people just didn't care about it. Like, it just, nobody, like, if they were the first person to do a hero shooter, yeah, maybe people would have been excited about Concorde, but there were other hero shooters that people cared about a lot more, that had better designs and fantasies and things like that.
Yeah,
but
well,
I think you're right to also hit on the gameplay. Or maybe, what did you hear about the gameplay for Concorde?
So, I don't have a PlayStation. I've never owned a PlayStation, so I wasn't going to play it anyway. But from what I've heard about it, I listened to a couple of different podcasts from people that had actually played it, and they were saying, like, these are streamers and people who play games all the time. So for them, they didn't actually hate it. But they said what they could see with the way that the gameplay was designed was that it's too complex and opaque for your average player to understand. And this is a problem that other games have run into. Like, I remember Heroes of the Storm was a MOBA from Blizzard. And I remember one of the issues with that, even when I tried playing in the early betas of it before the proper launch, was that it was more complicated because you had all these extra other mechanics on the map and people just had so much trouble figuring it out for some reason. It wasn't super complex, but it's enough that people have that extra layer of cognitive complexity that they have to figure out, and they just can't really handle it that well. And from what I understand about Concord, it had the same issue. Like, it was kind of a little bit mashed up, but it wasn't terrible. It was just something that made it too complicated and obfuscated for the average player to just jump in and figure out. And that was what seems to have turned a lot of people off it.
Yeah.
Yeah, like, no, definitely not as bad as Highguard with regard to just mashing random shit together and hoping it works.
Highguard was just like, oh, we like these things, let's smash them together.
Yeah. Oh, it's like, I watched a video of Highguard. I watched a couple of videos about Highguard, and I was like, just looking at this, I can see what games they've taken these mechanics from, and it's just like, I don't know why anyone, obviously people have, but I'm like, why would anyone tell you that this stuff works when it very clearly doesn't? You know, that was completely different. But yeah, so they've both got their own big critical flaws that have brought it down. And it's like, they're saying with Marathon, you know, it is obviously on its way out, but I don't think it suffers from the same issues as the other two, if that makes sense.
I think the fantasy, it suffers from a similar issue. Like, I think it's a better fantasy. Like, basically the clown robot fantasy is better than whatever Highguard and Concord had. I think that the way you see fantasy a lot of times is actually, and that's why we were watching the trailers, is from the trailers. And you'll also see it from how many people play on the opening day. And then the retention has probably more to, the retention also has to do with fantasy, but it also has a lot more to do with like gameplay stuff. So, but yeah, I think you can see, if you compare the fantasy of, have I closed them all? Oh no. So this is Destiny, Arc Raiders, and Marathon. And you can see Destiny had a much better fantasy than Marathon did. Because that's basically, the opening day is basically trailer and the vibes and fantasy of the trailer, and then maybe some gameplay footage that's going to affect that also. But like, it's mostly, the opening day release is mostly like a vibe check.
It's basically like kind of like Halo with space magic sort of thing.
Yeah. And so Destiny passed it. It did great, right? And I think the Destiny 1 trailer had way better vibes than Destiny 2. And then Arc Raiders obviously knocked it out of the park. So, anyway.
Yeah. Well, the thing I think with Destiny 2, again, which is, I can see why people compare it, but I try not to, because the thing with Destiny 2 is it's a very, very different game too that appeals to a lot more people. Like, the bulk of Destiny 2 is PvE content. So it's appealing to a very different audience. It's a different vibe. And I get where you come in with the art vibe, but when it comes down to it, they're almost entirely different games too. So I think that's why it's probably done a lot better, because it had that wider appeal, which is now what they're trying to capture with their Hail Mary pivot to PvE stuff.
Okay, I
think the timeline continue?
I tried to make the devil's advocate argument for Marathon being Concord 3. And I do think Marathon's going to fail and cost Sony tons and tons of money, but I don't think that makes it Concord 3, because Concord isn't just failing. If every game that fails is a Concord, then I think that the word loses meaning. Like, Concord is missing the mark so heavily, and spending it, you also have to have a big budget. Like, you need to be well over like 50 million. And it's missing the mark so entirely, you like basically completely wipe out and crash. And I don't think Marathon fits that. Like, I mean, it fits the budget mark. It's definitely going to be a wipeout, I think, unless they have some huge pivot like you were talking about. But yeah, I think I ultimately agree with you. I think if we say it's Concord 3, I think Concord doesn't really have much meaning. It's disrespecting the magnitude of the Concord failure, I think, to call Marathon a Concord 3.
Yeah, no, I think that makes sense. I think that with this whole timeline, it's just a meme kind of thing, and people are just sort of taking the piss out of the entire process of all these games coming out. But yeah, no, I think I agree with that. Like, it's calling it a Concord level failure would be trying to undersell how big of a failure games like Concord were. So, and it's not, I don't think it's that level, but yeah, I think more importantly, just if we wrap up really quick, what do you think would be likely to happen with BUNGiE if it doesn't do well?
I think what they're going to do is, I think BUNGiE is, so this was another thing I didn't really mention in this whole thing, but there's a problem in how game studios work that they never carry like a war chest. And a lot of times if you're working, like basically it's like you make a deal with your publisher, they give you a certain amount of money. If that game does well, then you can talk them into giving you more money for the next game, which you can hire a bigger staff. There's a game my mom used to play when she was a kid. She was in her grandmother's garage and she would take like an oily rag and light it on fire. And then she would see if she could put it out. And then she would take another oily rag and add it to it. So it'd be 2 oily rags, and see if she could light it on fire and then see if she could put it out. And she kept doing that until she couldn't put out the oily rags anymore. It was too big. And then she burned her grandmother's garage down. So I think this is I don't know another name for that kind of trap that game studios in particular get into. But they have a success. They can't ever bank up this money. It's like if you make $1 billion from a game, it goes to your publisher and you get some of it. But they never build up like these big war chests. And then the signal that you were successful is you get like to have a bigger team for the next round. And that certainly happened here with BUNGiE. We saw them do like massive hiring as they went into Destiny 2. That was a big reason that Activision kind of got uncomfortable with them. And then they did a ton of hiring here through the end of Destiny 2 and then getting ready for Marathon. So just a huge amount of hiring. They have a huge burn rate of, I think, 300 million a year or something like that. It's probably less now because they've already done some cuts. But I think you were to answer your question, what is in the future for BUNGiE? I think they have to do super deep cuts. I think that it's worth doing one more good faith, maybe try to hit it out of the park with the PvE thing. Also, just as a bit of like a good faith maneuver, do another release for Marathon. But I think that's it. I think you do one more and it's probably going to fizzle out and die. I think it's just too bad of an IP to funnel any more money into. And maybe you could keep like some team on that maintains like balance and stuff, that's not really doing like major content. They can maybe do a couple, like you have like a team of like 10 people and they can fix balance and bug issues for the next 5 years. Maybe that's worth it, because it's like what you were saying, that would be a fine player count if you were a really small studio. So I think you have to right size. You can maybe do one significant release, see if you can fix some of these problems. I don't think you'll get any of the player base back. After that, it can be like a 5-person team that keeps the game alive. I think what you have to do, you have to cut this thing down to like the highest skilled, like core team of people. And then you basically get one shot to make a cool fucking game. And I think if you do it, it's like the ship of Theseus. None of you were there, but you need to look at your heritage. You need to look at like, what was it that was the magic in like Halo 1, 2, and 3, and then in Destiny 1? Get the vibes. And I think you have to pass the vibe check first on the vision, and then you get one shot. Yeah. A lot of game studios get 2 or 3 shots, but I think this game studio is down to 1 shot left. I think Marathon was the first kind of death bell, and one more and they're out. What do you think?
Yeah, I think the same, but I think they've already had more than 1 shot. Like they've had both Destiny games to try and get this right, and they've had peaks and troughs like everyone else. But I think they've made some pretty. Everyone does, I suppose, but they've made some pretty significant screw ups over the lifespan of both of those games. They've done a lot of things to antagonize the players. I think it's kind of with BUNGiE between that and then during around the development of Marathon, where they were very hard headed about it and they had the whole stolen art drama and all that sort of thing. I think they've burned a hell of a lot of goodwill with the community as well. So there's that, and then you've also got what's going on with Sony and how they're losing money, and It's just, and we know they've already done layoffs. Apparently, they're looking at doing another round of layoffs. Jason Schreier just broke something. I think it was yesterday, saying that they're looking at doing a lot more layoffs. So I think with Marathon, they've got this one chance with the PvE mode to crush it and bring a whole bunch of players in. I don't think they can do it. I'd like to be proven wrong, but I don't think they will pull that off. Because, like we're saying, something like this, you want to design your game around it from the start. You don't want to be trying to just whack it in there as an extra mode. So I don't think they can pull that off. And in their future, they're looking like, see, they're already absorbing some people from BUNGiE into Sony. So maybe if they don't pull this off, I don't know. Maybe they just shut BUNGiE down and they either cut it back to a really small team, because apparently they're not working on anything else at the moment. They have no plans for a Destiny 3. They have no plans for anything else as far as anybody knows except Marathon. So
I thought in their press release it indicated they were working on something new.
I think they had a couple other. Oh, they might have had a couple other things that were in the works, but it's definitely not a Destiny 3. Like, yeah, they're doing like incubation or something.
3. I think I think the best thing for them would be like a new greenfield project.
Yeah, like just
and
go
I think
do
their
something else.
inspiration should just be make something epic and cool. Like, don't. A Marathon is not epic and cool. It's just not. Like, it's not anywhere close to epic and cool. Destiny 2 or Destiny as a franchise was way, way, way more epic and cool than Marathon. So was Halo. So I think go back to epic and cool, huge galactic. If you're going to do space, which I think sort of is the vibe now, like reimagine a new space world, maybe with some new slant or something. Like you're fighting, I don't know.
It's either they're going to, well, we know they're getting laid off. There's going to be more people going through layoffs now, apparently. So I remember a while ago when they were talking about the changes that they were going to make to the Destiny model, that they were looking at working on a couple of other smaller projects. I don't know if they're still doing that or not, but it's either going to be they get completely shut down and get absorbed into Sony, or they get cut back to a small team. And it basically like saying, like do a complete hard reset. They're just like, right, wipe the slate completely clean, work on a new IP, do something smaller scale as a smaller studio that you can actually afford to do, which I think is something I mentioned with Ben a while ago, how, there's some studios that are going back to doing that now. Like Space Marine 2 apparently didn't actually cost that much money to make, and it's fucking awesome.
Yeah.
So it's like, it's an older way. It's sort of regarded, I guess, as an older way of doing things now, I guess, when you're at this sort of scale, but it's not to say you can't do it. So I'd like to see that, if they could go back and make smaller projects and see what they can make. But it's definitely like a real existential crisis for them. It's neither of those options. Well, I mean, one of them might be great eventually. The other one's definitely not. But it's pretty wild.
One thing you said made me reconsider my answer a bit, which is I think that just the way game development works is you usually need like a really elite kind of like core team to build out the first prototype of the game that you want to make, and they need to play with it a bunch to make it feel good. And that then you like scale up to like production, where you make tons of assets and levels and all of this stuff. And there's a ton of stuff that happens in that pre-production process where you're basically prototyping. The problem is when you have if you were planning on like Marathon, okay, now we're going to go into production, make a ton of content mode. You're going to have like 6 or 7 expansions. I don't think that's going to happen. Like maybe you do one, but it's probably going to die. Then it's like, if that one dies, then you have to basically fire the Marathon production team. And while you're going into this, so what they said in their newsletter thing was that, so basically they're coming to an end of Destiny 2. And their focus turns towards a new beginning for BUNGiE, and they'll start working on incubating their next games. So that means they're basically going to start pre-production on their next games, or maybe they already have for a little bit. But basically, Marathon fucked up so bad that the production team is probably going to have to go away. And if you don't have a project, like ideally you have a lot of these pre-production things going, and then every so often you have like a pre-production thing that's a huge hit, and you're ready to, internally, right? And you'd be like, oh, this looks awesome. And then you put your production team on it. I think that whole rhythm has been thrown off for them. So now they're going to have to do a ton of pre-production, maybe on 1 to 3 games, trying to figure out what they like. But I don't know if there's going to be any place for the production team to land. So maybe they can get absorbed into Sony and go work on some other products until they can come back to something that maybe the pre-production team has cooked up. But I think that's the big risk. I think that they're risking losing, like cutting down to like 200 people.
Yeah, I don't know how many they've got now. I know they did do a big round of layoffs a while ago, and some of those people did get absorbed into Sony already. So maybe they just do, well, they're apparently talking about a round of cuts now, so they may just keep doing that and cut them way down to something that's actually manageable and then go from there.
Yeah. I think it's currently right around 850. But before, I think when Sony first got them, it was closer to like 1,200. So they probably need to lay off like 2/3 of their people, is my guess. I mean, this like just kind of shooting from the hip, but because basically I think they have to go into pre-production mode. They have to make some fucking cool things. But at this point, you start asking yourself as Sony, like, what did you buy? You know, because you're not wanting to use the Destiny or the Marathon IP, right? So then you bought a team of developers, and the team of developers is sort of shit the bed. And then you're like, okay, this team of developers, like, I need y'all to invent the next like fire in a bottle. I mean, can they do it? I don't know if there's much evidence. I don't know how many people were there from the original Destiny that like sort of remember how to catch the fire, but
it's like, is it likely? Probably not, but also like, you know, as much as people shit on Concord and Highguard and all that kind of thing, I don't like to, I guess, celebrate when studios crash and burn like that. So it's like, I don't think they can, but I kind of hope they can pull something off. And, you know, you've got studios like Monolith that got just killed off by, I think they were killed off by WB. And, you know, a lot of these studios have a lot of history. Like, this is a studio that basically made Xbox what it was back in the day. Like, you know, this insane pedigree. So I hope they can figure something out and actually, well, stay in business, basically.
Ship of Theseus.
Cool.
We'll see. But yeah, I mean, I hope it works out for them, but we'll see.
Yeah. All right.
I think that's it. I don't know if we have much more to end on. So yeah, I guess the official closing is, I think we're saying it's not Concord 3, but it's a flop either way. So we wish them luck in their next expansion and hope they turn it around. But I wouldn't want to be an investor. I'll say that much.
Yeah, pretty much. Yeah. It's not a Concord level failure, but they've got a lot of work to do if they want to have a chance of turning this around. I hope they can, but we'll have to wait and see.
All right, we'll see you guys next time. Let us know in the comments what your thoughts are. Do you rate this as a Concord 3 or no? That's of course the most important question to answer.
All right.
We'll see y'all.
See you guys.